Welcome back. This is Isaac and you're watching ACT Reading Prep. Now, so far we've been looking into the natural science passages, and today we're looking at the last natural science passages. And of course it's not the last because, like I explained in the previous lesson, that we still have one of each of the passage types left, and we're going to take a look at it as one test, right? As a one test, so that we can practice the intricate workings of, or at least the testing techniques and testing strategies later on. So think of this as one of the last natural science passages that we're going to take a look at. All right, so remember the last time, I've been stressing this point, you need to have that background information. A background information is something that you already know, something that you need to know, so that you have a better understanding of the passage when you just read that, topic sentences of each and every paragraph. All right, so remember that, please. All right, so today we're going to take a look at pages 754 to 755 of your red book. So let's go there and let's get started right away. All right, so today's passage, natural science passages, will deal with, adapted from the article, A Mystery Squid Found Lurking at Ocean's Bottom by Carol Kae-Suk-Yoon. I guess Kae-Suk-Yoon, so she might be of Asian descent, and I'm pretty sure she's Korean. Anyway, she wrote this in New York Times Company in 2001. I guess it's either a New York Times magazine or probably one of the articles or pieces in the newspaper. Either way, it's a mystery squid found lurking at ocean bottom. So I guess we're talking about the mystery squid. If we're not mistaken, if we're not mistaken, we're just talking about the actual squid, right? The actual squid, meaning the actual, the fish, the cuttlefish we're talking about, all right? Okay, now, you know that, from this, you should already pick something up, right? This will give you a good understanding of the passage right away, because when we're talking about squids are usually, they don't live in a deep ocean. They don't. They live in a relatively a shallow ocean, and they're very much attracted to the light, all right? Of course, Americans, Europeans are not really familiar with the cuttlefish or the squid because we don't really eat it, right? Yes, there are like calamari rings and stuff like that, but we're not really familiar with that. But Asians, like Koreans and Chinese and Japanese, this fish or this creature has been a source of food, and it's been source of snack. It's been source of a good nutrition as well. So therefore, if you're an Asian, you should know that squids are not really found in the deep ocean. So when we say squids at the bottom of the ocean or ocean bottoms, I think we're talking about a species of a squid that's a little bit different from the species that we know. Right? Usually squids are about the size of your hands, right? Of course, with the tentacles attached, it should be longer, but usually it's about size of your hands. The shapes and sizes would vary among the different species, all right? So remember that, put that into your head as a background information. Let's get to your passage, all right? So the first paragraph, introductory, so we'll read the first and the last sentence. It says, in a finding that has thrilled deep sea scientists and put squid experts in a tizzy, researchers have reported the discovery of the bizarre squid reaching 23 slimy feet in length, lurking the ocean's depth all across the globe. So we're talking about the giant fish, I guess, because it says 23 slimy feet, right? 23 feet. That's two basketball, I'm just going to erase this later on. That's two basketball goal posts, right? That's about 10 feet in length, and plus the 3 feet more. So meaning that it's bigger than human beings, right? Because usually the biggest human being right now is about 7 foot something, right? So therefore, it's a very, very giant fish. Now, just to tell you a background information, I have seen this documentary that has to do with the giant species of squids. All right. You see this in the myth and mythologies or the legends, right? You see this in the legends, like for example, Kraken, right? Remember Kraken? Kraken was a Greek mythology, like a deep sea monster, right? Which closely resembles the actual giant squid, right? Maybe what the sailors back then saw was a very giant squid or fish squid, and they, of course, you over exaggerate somehow in the myth and legend oceans, right? And so therefore it became that monster kraken. And there is a lot of account of these giant squids being reportedly seen and be caught by the middle-aged sailors. All right, there has been. And of course, today we don't really see this. I mean, you know, you've seen a couple of pictures in Google, like a squid that size, it's about a human-sized squids. I mean, not too big, but they're pretty big enough, right? Giant squids. So I think we're talking about that. 23 slimy feet lurking in the ocean's depth all across the globe, all right? And then it says the last sentence, scientists still have not captured the animals, right, which were seen near the seafloor in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans and the Gulf of Mexico at crushing depth, 1 to 3 miles below the surface. 1 to 3 miles below the surface, that's a lot of depth. It's way going down. So again, these giant squids are different from the normal species, which is the normal size species, not normal size, I should say, but a smaller size, the smaller size species that are attracted to the light and they live on the shallow surface of the ocean. These big ones, they live in down there, right? Like I said, I've seen these documentary, and what the evidence of these animals is that the sperm whales, right? The sperm whales are the big, huge whales. They are able to dive into such depth. Okay, they've been designed to do this, and they're about 30 feet in length. Okay, or approximately like 12 meters, I think, about 12 meters in length. And what they, we were able to, because of whales, right? They would dive and then they will come back up and dive and come back up. We were able to observe that on these sperm whales actually look like that, right? I mean, sperm whales, they actually look like that. I'm a terrible drawer. Please. Definitely not like that, but yes, it does look like that, right? All right, that's the air vent that goes over. Anyways, what happens is that on the surface of these animals, right, you see the suction pattern looking like scars on them, right? The scars that closely resemble the suction pads of the squids, all right? And their size was the suction pad size was so huge, right, that you have to assume that these creatures, these squids that sort of attack the sperm whale, or at least the sperm whale actually feasts on them, eat them. I guess they were trying to escape from the sperm whales. They had to be at least that or that big or bigger than that, right? They had to be. So, I mean, they were trying to find this, but scientists weren't able to picture this because what they did was they've attached cameras on these sperm whales and all that, and they were waiting for these sperm whales to feed on the squids, but they weren't able to capture any one of those, right? I guess, sperm whales, they occasionally do eat or they prey upon these giant squids. Most often than not, they would eat something else, right? And so therefore, they weren't able to find it, but they realized that because of these suction pads looking scars, they realized that there must have been some kind of a giant squid living under the depth of the ocean, right? Okay, let's move on to the second paragraph. It says, it occurred to me that these findings or these things were showing up all over the place in deep water, said Dr. Mike Vecchione. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation of his name. A squid biologist. There's apparently something called the squid biologist with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the lead author of the science paper. So this guy is no joke. He is with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and he's the lead author of the science paper. So therefore, he's not joking. He's saying for real that these giant species of squids are actually out there somewhere. It's just that we haven't found them yet, right? Third paragraph. Unlike the 60-foot-long giant squids, I guess 60-foot-long giant squids are the actual giant squids that are depicted all over the myth and legends, right? 23 feet is still big enough. Remember that, 23 feet is still big enough. However, these new squids have never washed up on shore or been found in the stomachs of whales. So we haven't really found them yet, right? That's what we're saying. These new species, the 23 feet length, slimy feet length of these species. I'm sorry about it's very itchy and scratchy. And anyways, that's what we're talking about here, right? Unlike the 60-foot long giant squids, these squids have never been found. I guess 60-foot long squids have been found once in, once in history, I guess. So here they're saying that we haven't really found them yet. And then it says scientists calculate that the deep sea, the lightless zone of the ocean that includes everything below 3,000 feet, encompasses more than 90% of the Earth biosphere, right? That's what we're saying. So what we're saying is the Earth biosphere are the plants and animals, right? It's, living organisms that make up the Earth, right? It says 90% of them actually live, or 90% of them are actually present under 3,000 feet or below 3,000 feet, meaning we have so many more animals that we haven't been able to identify and name, right? Still living down there somewhere. I mean, you've seen these documentaries, like the fish that are invisible, right? They have like the transparent fish, and the fish that has a light hook so that it lures its prey, right? And they get attracted to the light. I mean, you've seen this in Finding Nemo. And there are other species of fish that we don't know, right? That it even existed. So therefore, 90% of them, more than 90% of them actually live under that depth, right? And under that crushing depth. Next paragraph says, it's just a fantastic finding, said Dr. J. Frederick Grassel, the director of the Institute of Marine and Coastal Sciences at Rutgers University. That's in New Jersey, right? And then perhaps most remarkable is that researchers could piece the sightings together at all. That's the idea. They couldn't really do that. They could piece the sightings together at all, meaning they weren't able to do this at all, right? So meaning they weren't able to really find all these, it's you can't really piece it together, because I mean, if you want to read a little further, it says Dr. Viccioni said all the squids were spotted incidentally. They weren't trying to find it, but they were found incidentally, out of blue. So that's the idea. The squids were unusual in a number of ways, including their excessively long arms held in a unique bent stance, and their large fins, and their apparent lack of concern with the proximity of the submersibles, right? So I guess that's the idea here, the long arms. Remember, if you know your squid, it has a triangular shaped head, the fin, of course, that's the head fin, and then they have a long body, right? And then they have long 10 tentacles, but 2 of the tentacles are on the side, attached to the side, are very long, and you have the rest of the 8 tentacles, which are quite short, all right? And these tentacles will have a huge suction pads, as opposed to these tentacles will have a smaller suction pads, all right? So that's the shape of the squid. And what we're saying is that we have the long arms, right? Excessively long arms in a unique bent stance. I guess it's bent in this way or that way. And then it says their large fins and their apparent lack of concern. So large fin meaning the head fin must have been bigger than that, all right? And then it says a lack of concern with the proximity of the submersibles. So I guess when we're saying the apparent lack of concerns with proximity of the submersibles, we're talking about they're nothing like things that can dive far down onto the into the depth of the ocean, right? So that's what we're talking about. So unique. They're different from other species or other squids out there. It says next paragraph. It's a very exciting animal, said Dr. Clyde Roper, a zoologist at the National Museum of Natural History at the Smithsonian Institution. And of course, we'll read the quotation. This animal probably doesn't weigh more than 25 to 50 pounds. Most of its length is in these very, very thin tendrillous appendages, so most of the length is here. So meaning it's not that long, or it's not that heavy, because it's only 25 to 50 pounds, right? Most of the weight, or most of these length is in the appendages, and so therefore we're not really talking about a giant ones, but we're talking about big enough ones, right? They are very unique so meaning there are different species than the giant squids, or they're different species than the normal size squids, right? That's what we're talking about here, all right? Just on the side, because of a lot of things that are happening around the world, I mean, you've seen the movie called Godzilla, right? I mean, I'm hoping you've seen the movie called Godzilla, which came way before, like back in 1996 or 1999 or 2000. If you remember that story, it most definitely says that the French were actually experimenting with their nuclear weapons outside somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. And what happened was that because of the radiation, all these different Komodo dragons or whatever dragons have been affected with the radiation, and they mutated and they turned into the Godzilla, right? I think what happened is that this is I guess in a form what some of the scientists who are definitely not mainstream scientists are saying is that it might be some kind of a radiation, right? It might be some kind of radiation that has affected the not normal size, but a smaller species of squids and turned them into a bigger size, or turn them into at least a monstrous, freakish size squids, right? That's what they could say, and that's what they're saying. It's a possibility. It's a good possibility that might have been the actual thing that happened. All right. So here they're saying that it's a remarkable species, very exciting animal, right? It's not weighing that much. It's not that long. It's just long because of its appendages. So you can't really call it that big. All right. It says, without specimens in hand, that's the problem. You don't have the species. It is impossible for scientists to say whether that squid or whether the squids represent one or more species, right? Here's the idea. Because there's no specimen, we can't really say that it's one species or the other, or maybe it's a totally different species. There is no ground for that. And then it says Dr. Ron Odor, a senior scientist at the Census of Marine Life, says that new findings proves how far biologists have to go in understanding the deep sea, right? So we're saying that under the deep sea we can find some other things, and biologists must look into these different deep seas, right, or the different areas of these deep seas to find different species. All right, that would be the end of the paragraph or end of the passage. Now, you get the idea, right? You get how we are talking about a squid. We're not talking about a giant squid, but we're talking about this semi-giant squid, about 25 or 23 feet in length, and about 25 to 50 pounds only, and with very long appendages, right? But in a unique shape appendages. And they're saying that they haven't had any species, right, or specimens to identify this species, and we can't say it's belonging to one species or the other species. But what we can say for sure in the last paragraph, it says, is that we need to go far deep into the ocean to find new findings of new biological creatures. That's what the entire passage talks about. All right, so you get the idea, right? Okay, I'm hoping you do get this. All right, so you should remember where and which locations you would find the ideas from the questions, and so that it will direct back to you or back to the passages easier, all right, or quicker. All right, so remember that. All right, let's move on to questions 31. The passage implies that for researchers, the biggest obstacles to learning more about the new squid is, or new squids are. Remember, you can already solve this question, right? What would be the biggest obstacle? What would be the biggest obstacle? It said that they did not have any specimens, right? Reluctance of the squid to approach submersible or to be filmed. Uncertainty over how many different species the squid represents, declining number of sightings of the squid in recent years, or risks and costs imposed by the squid's remote habitat. All right, what would it be? Now remember, we have no specimens. We weren't able to find it, as in we wanted to go down there and find it because it was so far deep, right? Crushing depth. And so therefore, is it the reluctance of the squid to approach the submersibles? Not really. I don't think any one of these species of animals are attracted to the submersibles. I don't think so. Uncertainty over how many different species the squid represents? Not really. We're not really talking about the different species of the squids. Or is it the declining number of the sightings? It didn't say anything about the declining number of the sightings, but rather we probably can imply that risks and costs imposed by the squid's remote habitat might be the idea, because it says it's in the Atlantic Ocean, it's in Pacific Ocean, it's in Indian Ocean, but they are at a very deep under the sea. It's almost more than 3,000 feet down, right? 3,000 feet down. I mean, it's impossible. It's not impossible, but it's difficult to reach that depth, right? And also, it costs a lot of money. So therefore, the answer will have to be, it implies that, right, risks and costs imposed by squid's remote habitat would be the biggest problem, and of course the species is not present at the time, right? Okay, moving on to 32. The language of the first paragraph is most likely intended to convey a sense of what, all right? We read the first paragraph, if you remember the first paragraph. We read that and it kind of gave you what feeling, right? So it says, in finding that it has thrilled deep sea scientists, right? Researchers have reported the discovery of a bizarre squid reaching 23 slimy feet in length, lurking the ocean's depth all across the globe. Scientists still have not captured the animal, which were seen near the seafloor in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans and the Gulf of Mexico at crushing depth 1 to 3 miles below the surface. What can you get from this thrilled deep sea scientists, right? What would be the sense? What would be the mood? Convey the sense of what? Excitement generated by an intriguing discovery, confusion over a newly encountered species, skepticism about an allegedly important finding, enthusiasm for the practical benefits of research study. Ka-ching, therefore definitely excitement generated by an intriguing discovery. That should be your answer, right? I mean, simply speaking, what we're talking about here is that thrilled the deep sea scientists. I mean, we've already read that there are no specimens, but it's out there somewhere and we're trying to find it, you know, I mean, it's difficult to find it. That sort of gives us, you know, the excitement towards this new finding, new discovery of this species of, right, squid. That's the idea, right? 33. Which of the following statements best summarizes the comments in the passage from Odor? This was the scientist. Now remember how there were so many scientists, remember so many people who are holding important positions in different places, right? You saw that, right? One of the reasons is to try to back up your statements. That's one of the reasons to justify whatever you're saying, right? So anyways, Odor was there, and what about him, right? Which of the following statements best summarizes the comments, Odor? So you remember this name, Odor, right? Because it was right there, Dr. Ron Odor, right? A senior scientist at the Consensus of Marine Life says that new finding proves how far biologists have to go in understanding the deep sea. So remember, it's the last paragraph, and apparently what Odor says is that, you know, there are a lot of things down there and we should do something about it, right? Deep sea exploration is wasteful because so much of the ocean will remain unseen. Not really. Biologists are getting close to a full understanding of the deep sea. Not really. New submersibles will be needed to study the ocean's smart, fast creatures. Maybe. A great deal about the deep sea is unknown and will likely stay that way. Maybe, right? But what would be the idea now? Did he say that it's going to be likely to stay that way? Let's try to find out, because we read that part. It says, we'll be exploring essentially unknown territory, Dr. Odor said. Even as scientists undertook more detailed studies, he said much would remain unseen because any animals too fast or too smart to be caught in the lights of submersibles would remain out of view, right? So, what would be the idea here then, right? What would be the actual idea involved with that then? Would it be that the new submersibles will be needed to study ocean of smart, fast creatures? Or would it be that a great deal is unknown and it will stay that way? The answer will be yes, it will stay that way, right? Why is that? Because yes, you will probably need the new submersibles, but according to what he said, he didn't say, okay, we need a new submersible so that we can find these creatures, but he said some of these creatures are too fast and too smart for these submersibles, right? And so therefore he's saying that even if we do much of the study, it will still remain, right, unknown, and will likely stay that way, right? That's the consensus, that's the comment that he gives rather than new submersibles. Because remember, we're not really talking about the new submersibles, right? We're not talking about, yeah, let's try to come up with the new method so that we can research deep into the oceans. Rather, what we're saying is that what he said in the very beginning, if you look at the last paragraph with Dr. Ron Odor is saying is that, let's just go back, and it'd be much better if you see it yourselves. It says, senior scientist, whatever it says, proves how far biologists have to go in understanding the deep sea, right? We'll be exploring essentially unknown territory. That's what we're talking about. We don't know about this deep sea, and we haven't really been there, right? And some of the creatures are very smart and fast, so the submersibles aren't able to reach. And, you know, it's essentially an unknown territory, meaning that a great deal about the deep sea isn't really discovered, or it's unknown, and it will stay likely that way, you know, and then nothing more. He doesn't say we should do something about it, right? But he says that it's a deep sea and it's difficult to understand, right? I mean, you know, it's always good to, you know, It's always good to explore something, but it's an unknown territory. So therefore, it's going to be really hard. That's what he's saying. All right. So the answer will have to be D. I guess this is a little bit, right? It's a little bit confusing. I'm pretty sure this question is something that many students will get wrong, if ever, because of that, similar idea that's been mentioned by Odor, right? But anyways, the answer have to be this. All right. Let's go to 34. According to the passage, Architheuthis, right? I don't know what that is a name for what, right? So all you have to do is find this name. Where would you find it? So yes, it's important for you to understand it that way, but let's just do something else, something called scheming. Let's just try to find this name, because it's in it's in italicized version or italicized form. So all you have to do is you need to just scan through it and find that italicized form, and more than that, what you find it right there, right? Okay, so what does that mean? So it says, we'll read from somewhere here. Researchers say that it's not surprising because they are probably too delicate to survive such passage without disintegrating or being eaten. Not even the giant squid, the Architheuthis, right, has been seen alive in its natural deep sea habitat. So therefore, we're talking about the giant squid, which is about 60 feet long, right? Okay, so if that's the idea, then what is this animal supposed to be, right? Is it both the giant squid and its close relative, the new squid? Or is it the both giant squid and its distant relative, the new squid? Or is it the giant squid only, or is it the new squid only? Remember, new squids have no name, right? We haven't found the specimen yet, so there's no name to be attached to it. Not this, so the answer will be the giant squid only, right? Simple as that. All right, moving on to the next question, 35. The passage states that the giant squids has yet be what? Right? What has it yet be, or what has it not done yet? Found washed up on the shore, found in the stomach of a whale, seen alive in its natural habitat, reported on in the Science magazine. Now, most often, it is definitely reported on the Science magazine. It was found washed up on the shore. It was found in the stomach. Maybe it was found in the stomach of the whale. Maybe it's seen alive in its natural habitat. Now, which one of these, right, giant squids have not been yet? So remember, most of the students make that mistake saying, okay, it's a passage state that giant squid has yet to be. Now, that's the idea. Now, you tend to think that the giant squid is the squid, the new species of squid that we have found. And so you kind of tend to confuse yourself and say, oh, okay, the squid, whatever. And you're like, okay, it's seen alive in its natural habitat. That might be the way that the students would go. But we're talking about the giant squid. Remember that, giant squid, right? It's the other squid, the giant squid, the 60 feet squid, all right? So let's take a look at that. So what about the giant squids, right? What happened to giant squids? All right. It says, if you look at the very beginning here, 60-foot giant squids, right? It says, however, unlike the 60-foot giant squids, however, these new squids have never been washed up on shore. So meaning the giant squids have been washed up on shore, right? They've been washed up on shore, or been found in the stomach of the whale. So they have been found in the stomach of the whales, right? They have been found on that. All right. Researchers say that it is not surprising because they are probably too delicate to survive such passage without disintegrating or being eaten. Not even the giant squid has been seen alive in its natural deep sea habitat. Right? So, 3 things already been answered, right? So, was it found washed up on shore? The passage said giant squids have been washed up on shore? Yes. Found in the stomach of a whale? Yes. Seen alive in its natural habitat? Not really, right? Reported on the Science magazine? Definitely. So, either way, you could have answered the question, but what I'm saying is that some of the questions will be very confusing, and you won't be able to answer the question if you don't think straight, because most of the students just tend to become very ignorant and think that the giant squid is just that squid we're talking about, the new species of squid, but rather it's not. So what you need to do is definite yes, it's seen alive in its natural habitat. No, giant squid, this time it was lucky because it says giant squids and the new squid have both been not found in its natural habitat yet, right? So that's the answer. But most of these giant squids have already been done, right? Because I'm telling you, this is very important, because if you thought that this was the new squid, you'd probably think that, yeah, they were found washed up on shore. Yes, or no, you would say no. Found in the stomach of a whale? No. Reported, maybe you probably would have chosen this as an answer, right? So remember to look into the words carefully, right? So that you can answer the questions correctly, okay? Moving on to the next, 36. The author refers to the skin of habitat on land, line 31 primarily too. So why this, right? So 31, let's go to line 31 and see what that means. So if you don't understand what that passage or what that part of a paragraph says, then what you need to do is you need to look into that, all right? So it says line 31, the skin of habitat, so the skin of habitat on land is minuscule in comparison. Yet because the ocean's depths are dangerous and expensive to explore, very little is known about the deep sea, so little that even a big common creature can go undetected, right? So what are we saying? Just above that, we're saying that 3,000 feet under, we have 90% of the biosphere present there. And it says the skin of habitat on land. When you say skin, it's the superficial, right? It's the superficial. It's the very, just the, the surface of it. So that would be better. Surface, right? So surface of habitat on land is minuscule in comparison. It's so small on land. That's what we're saying. So what are we doing? We're trying to compare and contrast between the deep seas and the surface, right? If that's the idea, then what would it be? Is it contend that researchers should look underground rather than underwater for new animal species? I'm sorry about that. It's 4. Is it G, emphasize the vastness of deep sea habitat in contrast to the land habitat? Or does it suggest that land habitats are just as worthy of study as ocean habitats? Or is it to point out that much deep sea research could be performed more safely and cheaply on land? You definitely have the answer right there, right? Emphasize the vastness of the deep sea habitat, which is 90% of the biosphere, right? As compared to or contrasted to the land habitat, which is just the surface. Only 10% or less than 10% of the biosphere, right? Okay, so that's the answer. Simple as that, people, right? Okay, moving on to 37. Within the passage, Grassell's statement in the 5th paragraph serves mainly to, right? So you've read that name, Grassel, right, in the 5th paragraph, lines 36 to 41. Thankfully enough, we have read that part already. I mean, I'm talking about the Grassel part of it. Dr. Clyde Roper, and we have Dr. Grassel. Where was Dr. Grassel? There you go, Frederick Grassel, right? It's just a fantastic finding, said Dr. J. Frederick Grassel, the director of the Institute of Marine and Coastal Sciences at Rutgers University. We haven't read that, so let's read that. I've made a lot of dives in the submersibles and never seen anything like these. It's remarkable that there have been so many sightings recently. So he's been diving frequently and he hasn't seen it, but it's interesting how there are so many sightings now, right? Okay, if that's the idea, then what can we say about his comments, right? Grassel's statement in the 5th paragraph mainly serves to emphasize the value and uniqueness of the discovery of the new squid? Or does it offer an urgent call for more submersible-based studies of the new squid? Or does it reveal that he spends most of his time as a researcher making dives in the submersibles? Now, that's just very out of, right, topic. Explain the role of the Institute of Marine and Coastal Sciences as in squid research? No. So it's either one of these two. Is it the emphasizing the value and the uniqueness of the discovery of the new squid, or is it offering an urgent call for submersible-based studies of the new squid? Now, definitely this is not, because he's not really calling urgent call for the new submersibles, but rather what he's saying is that it's emphasizing the value and the uniqueness of the discovery of the new squid, right? He's saying, I made so many dives, but it's so recently that there have been many sightings. And he says it's a fantastic finding, fantastic discovery, right? So he's saying it's valuable, it's very unique, right? It's a very unique and valuable discovery. You get the idea, right? Okay, moving on to the next, 38. In the passage, Viccioni claims that all of the sightings of the new squids were made how? We remember that word, incidental, right? So he said incidentally made. All these were, where do we find that word? Incidentally made. Nothing was very intended, but everything was very incidental, right? If I remember right, there was this incidental part of it. Where was it? Was it here without any specimen? The animals remain unnamed. Maybe not, all right. What we need to do, I thought I saw that as we were reading the first sentences, but maybe not, all right? Maybe not. So what we need to do is we need to find that part where, maybe here, right? Maybe here. Okay. Oh, there you go. I've read that part right there. You see that right there? It says Dr. Vicioni said that all the squids were spotted incidentally, right, by scientists or oil company workers looking for something else on the ocean floor. So incidental. It wasn't intended or it wasn't purposeful, right? So meaning, what Vicioni is saying is that intentionally by scientists looking specifically for the squid, no. Intentionally by scientists, no. So it's unintentional, right? Incidental, unintentional. So unintentionally by scientists or oil company workers, true. Searching for something else. That's exactly right? Or is it J, unintentionally by oil company workers exploring the ocean floor with submersibles? True, but scientists are lacking, right? So therefore the answer will have to be H. Remember that? This makes sense too. Oil company workers exploring the ocean floor with submersibles. I'm pretty sure that's what they did. But it doesn't say submersibles, and also it doesn't mention scientists at all, right? Scientists are also part of it. So scientists and oil companies working or workers searching for something else. That was exactly what it said in the paragraph. So that should be your answer. Simple as that, right? So remember that, please. 39. It can most reasonably be inferred that the word love in line 49 refers to the man's love for what, right? So let's go to 49. So this one is quite tricky because we haven't read that part. So we'll read that 49 here, right? It says, the chance observation occurred over the last 13 years. Dr. Vicioni said that the first videotape he saw of one of these animals was made not for science, but for love by a man abroad on oil exploration vessel using a remotely operated submersible. When the submersible came across the squid, the man filmed it because his girlfriend was interested in marine biology. So I guess it was out of man's love, right? So if that's the idea, what love are we talking about, or what this love refers to is the new squid, marine biology, another person in submersible, most definitely another person, right? His girlfriend. All right, easy as that. All right, let's move on to the last question, 40. The passage characterizes the idea that the new squid eats small crustaceans. What's a crustacean? These have the hard-shelled, so hard-shelled animals, right? For example, like shrimps or things like I don't know, crabs and stuff like that, right? Obtained with sticky arms as what? So we need to find that idea. So the passage characterizes the idea that the new squid eats small crustacean obtained with sticky arms as what, right? As a what? Is it a fact verified? Is it fact supported? Is it an opinion, or is it an opinion, right? That's what we want to know. So what do they eat? How do you characterize the new squids and eating crustaceans, right? So the keyword here should be crustaceans or crustaceans. So you find it right there somewhere, right? So that's the idea. Let's read this. The mystery squids are most similar to small young squids discovered several years ago near Hawaii and California that had large fins and long, slender arms. Dr. Vicioni speculated that the new squid might eat small crustaceans that they grabbed with what scientists suspect were sticky arms. One of the squids actually got its arm stuck on the submersible, and it had trouble letting go, he said. I think it has our many really tiny suckers on it. So meaning it has tiny suckers on that arm or on that appendages, right? So how do you characterize that, or how was the squid characterized, or how was it characterized that they actually eat small crustaceans? Is it a fact verified by examination of tiny suckers on the squid's arms? Not really. It wasn't really examined by. He's just positing that it had a hard time letting go the side of a submersible. Therefore, it must have had the, small suckers. Or is the fact supported by the study of a similar squid found near Hawaii and California? Might be a possibility. Was it an opinion founded by a videotape images of the squid's mouth and teeth? Or is it an opinion based on part of an incident involving one of the squids and a submersible? So it's either G or J, right? Which one would you say? Was it a fact or was it an opinion? It was an opinion, right? Rather than a fact, because he said that I suspect these are the ideas, but it's not, he hasn't really proven yet. Because he said, just because, if you look at the videotape and if you look at an incident, what happened is to say this is a submersible, right? Let's say this is a submersible. They latched onto it and it had a hard time letting it go. And so what he's saying is that he says that that the squid itself must have in its tentacles, it must have these small suckers, so it's really sticky, right? So once it sticks on it, it has a hard time letting go. That's what he's saying. But it's not a fact because it's not supported by anything, but it has to be an opinion, right? Because it was just an experience some of these other people had, and he's interpreting as, that might be the possibility, right? So the answer will have to be J. All right, so you see how quick and easy natural sciences can be solved. All right, so remember that, please. Natural sciences, it requires your background understanding, at least to the same premise as the squid. I mean, I haven't seen these little squids, but I've seen the giant squids, and I know what they're talking about. At least I know what they are, what they are concerned about. How they're supposed to find these specimens, or how it's difficult to find those specimens. I mean, I understand the processes involved with this study, right? And so therefore, it's been easier for me to answer the questions. So for natural sciences, I'm really, really hoping that you have a background knowledge on this, right? And so what we're going to do the next meeting or next lesson is that we're going to take a look at the last of the passages from the prose fiction to the natural sciences, and we're going to put it or bound it as one entire test, okay? And what we're going to study the next time is to understand the testing strategies rather than the solutions, and rather than the answers and questions and solutions to the actual passages. What we're going to do is we're going to approach it as if this is an entire, right? It's an entirely one set of tests. And once you're given these tests, how are you going to attack or approach or handle these different sections of the passages, and in which order you're supposed to solve it, or what ways can you do this in a faster sense, right? That's what we want to take a look at. All right, and of course after that I'll give you a little bit of a practice, right? A practice test from one of the previous tests, the actual test, and we'll see if we can incorporate what we have learned so far into those practice tests as well. All right, so thank you for watching. This has been Isaac, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.